Hey, everybody, welcome to tonight's Late Night Happy Hour. Brian Kamenetzky and Andy Kamenetzky coming to you at the beginning of what we think is going to be just a really great week here on the Late Night Happy Hour. Expecting Metta World Peace to join us momentarily, talking all kinds of stuff. Then we're going to get into NBA. We'll get into mental health, all the work he's done there. We've got some fun things we want to do with him regarding his press conference. Of course, talk about XvsX his new app that he's got out, which is pretty cool. And it sort of, I kind of read it as almost as like Match.com for basketball players.
Yeah.
You can get yourself, involved in any kind of game, anywhere from rec people all the way up to pros. So
like platonic pickup games, like a platonic Match.com. Like, we want to make it clear,
right. I guess if you find love there, all the better. But that's not what it's for.
Right. If you find love there, all the better. I just want to, before we even bring Metta on and before he eventually does talk about XvsX sports, I want to make it clear there is no guarantee or really even, even any type of hint that if you go to one of these pickup games, you're going to find love.
Right, don't bitch at him.
Like, that's not his job. It's not basketball Twitter. It's not basketball Tinder. Like, I want to make sure that's clear.
Right. No, but my point is, like, you go find a game. But anyway, so Metta will be joining us momentarily, is the plan here. So as we wait for that, it is kind of a good night for the Lakers. Like, they finished this trip 5-2. They beat Atlanta tonight to finish off the series. And like, I know people, the big headline here is that nice lady who got thrown out of the game, and all of that. And we'll get to that perhaps tonight. We will certainly get to it over the course of the week. But just from the standpoint of the game, Andy, I look, they must have said on the postgame show on Spectrum 47,000 times, the last game of a 7-game road trip is always the hard one when you want to leave. Lakers win this one by 8, 107-99, outscore Atlanta 32-23 in the fourth quarter, 25 for AD, 21 7-9 for LeBron. I was impressed with how they finished this game. Atlanta does not suck. They're 10-10. Trae Young is unbelievable. John Collins has played really well. And like, this was a hard road trip. This was not a typical Eastern Conference road trip where you're playing a bunch of shit teams. This was a good trip where the only legitimately bad team they played was ironically the one that they lost to. Well, I guess Chicago. They also played Chicago.
Detroit. And by the way, too, Detroit has not been awful lately. And either way, they play really hard. Like,
right, but they're not good, is all I'm saying.
No, I know that. But I'm just saying, even in the context of acknowledging they're not a great team, they're also a team that will play really hard. And it was the second end of a back-to-back without Anthony Davis.
Right.
Lakers still should have won the game. That's not my point. But it felt a bit like the potential for a trap game even before we knew that AD wasn't going to be available.
Right.
Just sort of had that vibe to it. And then he wasn't there. And then they got trapped.
Yeah. But you look at the teams that they beat. Cleveland, when everybody's been available, Cleveland has been a pretty good team, and they've been particularly good defensively. They won that game. Atlanta, again, 10-10 after tonight's game. So they were over 500 when they played that. And they've had some injury issues. And so when they're relatively intact, they're not a bad team. And then you have the three marquee teams there, Milwaukee and Boston and Philly. And obviously 2 1-point games there. You could easily be 1-2. You could have lost both of them. You could, whatever it is. They won 2 of those 3. I got nothing. I got nothing bad to say about this trip.
No, this was a really, really strong road trip. Anytime you can go 5-2 on the road, period. It's exhausting.
Right.
And especially now too, like, it's difficult for these guys. I think short road trips, you and I talked about this before, Brian, on a Land of Lakers podcast, I want to say a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. The idea that I think being on the road for short periods can actually provide a certain degree of advantages for the road team, just because when you're at home, particularly during this period in the pandemic, when everybody is boxed up in their own house and nobody can leave and your kids are doing school from home, there are certain stresses that might be nice to be away from every now and then on the road for just a few days in a hotel room.
just like a couple days. It's like
Right.
I need a little bit of me time.
Exactly. But once it starts becoming extended, like 5 games, 7 games, this type of length where you have to stay in your room basically, period, the whole time. Like it starts becoming the equivalent of when these guys checked into the bubble and, like the first 72 hours or whatever it was, you couldn't leave at all. It starts becoming that type of vibe. And I think over the course of these type of road trips, it starts becoming even harder than a 7 game in normal times. Because as long as that is, at least you guys can go out for dinners together. You guys can hang out together. You can go out, whatever. You're really just living inside a hotel, playing a game, getting on a plane, going to your next hotel room, sitting in there playing a game, yada, yada, yada. That's mentally tough. Like that's grueling actually for these guys.
It's almost worse than the bubble. It's in a lot of ways a trip like this is worse than the bubble, because at least in the bubble, once you were in there, everybody was sort of the same. Like you could go walk around, you could do stuff, you could, you're really not allowed to go because you're in the world, and the world is not a safe place to be, for players who don't want to end up in the protocol. Like Detroit, it was the Detroit Denver game tonight was canceled with like minutes before it was supposed to start because somebody got one of those inconclusive tests. And now everybody's got to go through the contact tracing until they can confirm whether or not, I think it was a player, it was reported, is actually positive. The Lakers, Frank Vogel, like literally knocked on wood in the pregame because they're one of, I think, 6 teams left in the league that hasn't had to have a game delayed for this stuff. And like some of that's out of your control. Denver didn't do anything that caused a delay or whatever. And I don't want to shame whoever it was in Detroit that may have had a positive test. I don't mean they caused it or whatever. They're irresponsible.
I do, by the way, though, really quickly, I want to shame somebody in the process of all this. I want to shame Bill Oram, who covers the Lakers for The Athletic, because Bill actually asked Frank Vogel before the game about the fact that the Lakers are like one of, I don't know, a handful of teams that have not had a single.
He absolutely jinxed it.
He jinxed the whole thing. And Frank Vogel tried to do the right thing. He actually literally knocked on wood during the pregame, trying to ward this off. But of course, Bill Oram just had to go there, like had to put it out there in the ether. So if the Lakers end up having to have this game canceled against the Pistons and their streak ends up getting ruined, I think we all know where you can direct your ire towards. Bill Oram.
Yeah, it's Bill's fault. But Bill's a good place to direct your ire anyway.
Right.
So
sure, he'll come up with some punny response, some pithy pun.
So, but like, they're one of the few teams, and it's in part because of luck. Again, it's luck that nobody has contracted the virus because you can do everything you're supposed to do. It's a communicable disease, and all of this stuff. And it's also vigilance, which means when you're on the road, you can't go anywhere. Atlanta, last night of a road trip, normally, to just pull the curtain back a little bit, Atlanta is a place NBA players go out. Even ones that are,
yes, it is.
Even ones that take the game very seriously, all of this stuff. Atlanta is a place people go out.
You may have heard, Brian, it is the host of, or it is the host city of one Magic City.
That's right.
Home of the lemon pepper Lou's.
That's right. As Gooey K says, lemon pepper Lou. So yeah, but like you can't. It's so 2 weeks of that where like you're only allowed to be in the hotel essentially sucks. Yeah. It's so, I mean, it is a grind, and good for them for coming back and finishing that thing 5-2. And so the other thing that I thought was, that was significant about this, in the Boston game, they went with 9 guys, and THT played. Wes Matthews did not. Markieff Morris did not. It was hard to tell at the time whether or not that was going to be something that was going to be every day or not, or sometimes, or maybe, or whatever. Well, they played another game tonight that wasn't a necessarily playoff prep thing. They weren't on a 2-game losing streak, whatever it might be. And they played 9 guys, and it was the same deal. I think this is significant because we've been kind of waiting for this for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there had been a point where Frank Vogel, as much as he, by his own admission, loves to have large rotations, he loves to play, if he had his druthers, 10, maybe even 11 guys. And there was a period where you had 10 or 11 guys legitimately making a case for themselves to be on the court. But these last couple of weeks, it's fluctuated a bit. And, in particular, Wes Matthews and Markieff Morris, the 2 guys who are currently on the outside looking into the rotation, they have not been producing much, and they've been part of a bench unit that, other than Kuzma, the way it had been before, didn't really have anybody who played along the perimeter who was either capable of creating his own shot or was even looking for his own shot, because Wes was averaging in almost 20 minutes a game, 4 shots per game. Markieff in about 15 was averaging less.
All threes, basically, it should be doing.
Right.
All of them.
And Caruso, as well as he is playing and as essential as he's become to this team, particularly in the closing minutes of game, like he's become a fixture ever since, last season in the playoffs in tight games closing out. Caruso doesn't take enough shots. Like he just doesn't. For a guy that's averaging over 50% from behind the arc.
Do you feel like he's at least starting to become a little bit more like tonight? He had a couple plays where he took the ball to the basket.
No,
he had the nice finger roll around Trae Young. I mean, I feel like he's at least starting to kind of sort of get a little bit more aggressive.
No, I think I don't think he's starting to become more aggressive with his shot. I think Caruso is just becoming more confident busting out the bag of tricks. Like every game he'll show off 2 or 3 things that he can do, but they'll be the only 2 or 3 things that he does the whole game. Like that'll be it.
And it's like, how about you do that twice?
Right, exactly.
But maybe 3 times. It was funny. Like you tweeted out that he needs to shoot more. He needs to, and I retweeted it. He needs to channel his inner John Ireland, who is an unabashed chucker in his pickup games. You'll hear him on 710. You'll hear him on the Lakers broadcast talk about it. Whenever he talks about how he plays basketball, what is he there to do? Shoot. He catches the ball. He shoots. We need Ireland to talk to Caruso from an appropriate distance away and just explain to him the way of the Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to be doing more of that. I mean, Caruso needs to be putting up, if nothing else, put up more outside shots because you're hitting over 50%. Billy Mack actually during the broadcast tonight, Bill McDonald pointed this out, and this led to me tweeting what you talked about earlier. He's no longer Alex Caruso leading the league in 3-point percentage, not because he's missing more shots.
That was why I tweeted.
He is not shooting enough to be among the qualifiers to be in the rankings. That's just kind of ridiculous. I mean,
it says everything you need to know about him, though. He's like too selfless. Like you and I, if we were had a chance to lead the NBA in a statistical category, you think I'd lead?
Yes.
Hell yes, I'm shooting. Come on.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I put myself out there publicly doing crap I'm not even good at, much less the stuff that I am good at.
Honestly, if I had the opportunity to lead the league in turnovers, I would try to do that just so I could say I won.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to be at the top of something. Even if it's the shittiest thing possible. If I'm the best at being the shittiest, assuming I'm not hurting people, yeah, I'm gonna put it out there.
By hurting people, you don't mean like fans who want the team to win. You just mean physically hurting people.
I mean, like as long as I'm not damaging people, like, there are shitty people who do shitty things to other people. I don't want to be like the best shitty person, like that kind of shitty person. But I'm saying if I'm really that good at turnovers, you're probably going to see me turn the ball over a lot. Like I just want to really stand out at something. But anyway, I do
feel like your gift.
I would turn the ball over a lot. A lot. Great story, by the way. I read one time a profile of Benicio del Toro, the great actor who apparently was a high school basketball player, and he was a point guard, and he was known for being extremely flashy on the court and flashier than he was actually capable of being. So his nickname in high school was Benicio del Turnover, which I think is phenomenal. But anyway, what I was getting at before, though, with Caruso and Wes and Markieff, there wasn't really much along the perimeter in terms of shot generation with guys specifically in that second unit. And Montrezl Harrell will look for his shot, but you have to get the ball to him. Like, there are those layers of him eventually getting the ball. You put in THT, that guy will start looking for his shots. Yes. He has to do it responsibly, but he'll look for it.
But he'll do it, and he can. And so what matters here in terms of like the skill set and the rotation, all that kind of stuff. Again, expecting Metta World Peace to join us in just a few moments, talking about XvsX versus X Sports and all kinds of other stuff that he's got going on. So what matters here though is the skill sets that Markieff bring and Wes Matthews are essentially kind of interior defense and, stuff that Markieff can do. And then outside shooting in the case of Wes. And as much as he's struggled, his percentages are relatively 36% or whatever it is from three. It's relatively what it normally is. But it's one of those deals where, these guys are being replicated in ways that are better by other people. You're getting the shot creation from THT that they really do need. Like it's a really good outlet for them to have somebody who suddenly, I think it was Harrison Fagan at Silver Screen and Roll, and I think Darius Soriano at Forum Blue and Gold pointed this out too. Like the way it sort of opens up the floor, the passing combinations. THT I think is the second most assists to Trez of anyone on the team. So like that combination of being able to penetrate and then dump the ball off to Harrell when he's in the dunker spot or whatever it might be is a big deal. And it opens up things for Harrell. And then you go over to the stuff that like Morris can do. And well, now Kuzma's kind of doing it because the defense has gotten much better, much more reliable. And then also too, the outside shooting, which is part of what you need from Morris. Well, Kuzma's doing that too. He's up around 38%. And so it's like there's not, if Kuzma's doing all of that stuff and you're getting that, there's nothing that Morris does better. So I really like that Vogel is showing that I respect my veterans. Those guys are going to play again at some point. It's not like they're going to be buried forever. But if the kid does more and Kuz does more, and this is a better rotation for us to win games, that's what I'm going to play. And I think it's good to establish that now.
Well, this is something actually you and I just talked about on the most recent Land of Lakers podcast, which, as I just noted on the Believe Podcast Network, you should be subscribing to. Frank Vogel, ironically, with Alex Caruso having now become the staple in the closing unit, he began last season seemingly reluctant to play Caruso. Remember, it took like a few games before he really started giving him regular minutes. And then it took even longer before, even though it felt pretty evident to you and I, this guy should be a main part of your rotation. And my biggest takeaway from the way things ended up turning around and the type of role that Caruso has right now is we've just seen repeatedly, Frank Vogel is not a coach that will get caught up in his own perceptions. Like if Frank Vogel discovers something that needs to be done, whether because he had missed it initially or it's just the way the season is evolving. We saw the way he handled JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard during the playoffs last year, and the way those guys would go from starting to not even playing. He's really adaptable, and I think he's very good at talking to his players about why he's doing the things that he does.
Yeah. And I think they'll tell you that. I mean, even, Daniels, Quinn, all those guys last year would say, well, it's not that we didn't know. And apparently, it's hard for us to follow up on these things. I mean, to take people at their word when he says, yeah, I've communicated to those guys to stay ready. And they don't like it. I'm sure they don't like it. And you wouldn't want them to like it. But the flip side is too, it's like, if you're going to piss off two players on your team, two veterans, then I don't expect either one of these guys to rock the boat. That's not what I'm even trying to even get close to implying. Those are the two guys. I mean, neither one of them have any kind of reasonable expectation of a long-term future here. It's almost impossible if Morris plays pretty well for him to even come back, I think, financially. If he really puts up numbers. And, is Wes really going to be, down the road, like who you're expecting to be there for a long? No. So it makes sense. It's okay. As long as you communicate and you're professional about it and all that stuff, then it's fine. Like this is how you got to do it. But at some point, you need to at least feel out what your lineups are going to be. You can expand it back out a little bit, especially in a season like this, to give guys rest and make sure people have playing time, or let THT play 4 or 5 games in a row, sit him for 2, let Morris play, let Matthews play, whatever it might be, and then go back to it, or let Gasol have a night off and put Markieff in, or whatever. There are ways to get guys in the lineup, but you need to have an idea of what your 9 men are going to be when you need it to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also helps too that Frank Vogel seemingly, I mean, unless these guys are really, really good at hiding their disgust, Frank Vogel really has the buy-in of LeBron and AD. And if you've got the buy-in of those 2 guys on this team, you can, as a coach, for lack of a better way of putting it, get away with pretty much anything you want. As a coach, and Vogel's not the type who's going to look to abuse something like that anyway. I mean, he has a lot of respect for his players, and he treats them a lot with respect. And it's something that I think these guys recognize right away. And it's a big reason why I think they go along with the things they're supposed to be doing. But it really helps when the 2 main guys sign off on everything that you do.
And it should be noted, it's not like these guys didn't get a chance to play at the beginning. Part of the reason that Morris and Matthews have found themselves to be DNPs in the last couple of days, in the last couple of games, is they haven't played well. I mean, they gave these guys 20 games, give or take, to a little fewer with Wes because of the injury, but they had 15 games, 18 games, whatever it is, and they haven't played particularly well. And meanwhile, THT is inconsistent in some ways, but gives them a very specific skill set and a dynamic to their offense. And he works hard enough on defense, and he's trying, and he's not terrible on that side of the ball at all. He gives them a skill set that those other guys don't do. And he's particularly valuable. That they just don't have anybody else who can do it.
Well, in the meantime, too, I mean, with THT,
my point is, it's hard for the veterans to argue that they were sold a bill of goods and didn't get a chance to play themselves into the rotation, because they did.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, too, I mean, and I think these guys can trust Frank Vogel this way also, because most coaches are like this anyway. But if THT, of the guys in the rotation now, is the most prone to mistakes, he's the least experienced by a mile in that group. I mean, this, for all intents and purposes, this is THT's rookie year. I mean, he really did not play much at all last year. And if the mistakes that he makes during a game thus far have not really hurt the team, but as the season goes along, and in particular, as teams start really getting more of an idea of what he can do, as he starts playing more and more regularly, and they start adjusting to him, if those mistakes start catching up with him, that Vogel's going to end up making another decision that eventually leads to THT back on the bench again. And I think these guys just all buy in with Vogel making the right decisions and having integrity behind those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other fun news tonight was the moments where, you wouldn't think you would have issues with fans and hecklers and stuff being thrown out of buildings when there are 1,000 people in the entire arena. You don't blend in when you're shouting out and doing stuff at the star players. And so a woman was chucked out of the game for, I guess, yelling at LeBron. And what was funny about it, LeBron after the game was like, I didn't need her thrown out. Oh, hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Really good, man. How you guys doing?
Good, man. It's been a while.
I know. I haven't seen you guys in a while. Sorry, I'm so late. I was over here working, and then I had it scheduled on my calendar. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 10:16. Like, and then I didn't have Chrome on my laptop. I had to get Chrome. And then just to get StreamYard.
Are you a Safari guy?
I'm a Safari guy. Yeah, I'm a Safari guy. I don't see a need for Chrome except these moments.
Yeah, neither did we, to be totally
Chrome
honest.
is actually really good, though. I like Chrome.
Oh, well, then you know what? This whole thing worked out well in the end. Like, we actually managed to get you onto a better browser that you may not have discovered had you not been on the show.
Yeah,
but we're excited to have you on, man. You've got a new app now that just launched a couple days ago, XvsXSports, that we know actually has been in the works for a while, man. Like, how did this come about? Tell people about this.
Yeah, man, definitely good to be on your show. Absolutely. It's definitely been about for a while because, what I've been doing is trying to figure out ways just to continue basketball. I remember when I retired, I didn't retire, but my last year was 18 years in the league. The 1 year being the 1 year suspension, then 1 year I left. So 18 years total. And I remember wanting to do 20. And as competitive as I was, I had a job to do towards the end of my career. My job was to, just work hard and kind of show the young fellas what it takes to do 15, 17 years, whatever, in the league. So, but I still wanted to play. So I was always trying to prove something so I can play another 2 years and get another contract. 20 years, I'm like, I'm right there, right? So when Luke Walton, he actually did me a really good favor for keeping the stats in practices. So he kept the stats every game that was played in practice, from shooting games to full court games to fireman drill, everything. And then at the end of the season, I had 118. Now, why I remember that is because I was trying to figure, we was a really bad team. So at least I have something that I won that year. And it was crazy. The very last game that we played, I had 118. Lou Williams had, I think, 115. And then Tariq Black had 117. The very last game that we played is freaking dodgeball, right? It's the last practice. We played dodgeball. Tariq Black wins dodgeball, right? And the score was 118, 118. We had 100. I had 118 wins, but I did have 118 wins that year. So what happened was I just wanted to say, I said, okay, since I can't play in the league, I'm gonna travel and play basketball around the world. And so I was going to develop an app because I figured if I did it on an app, I could just travel, take vacations, travel Croatia, Serbia. I always wanted to play in Croatia and Serbia, by the way. And I figured this was a way where I can just connect with the community and just play competitive basketball. And then when I was building it, certain things was going wrong in terms of it was things I needed to get done. So I said, okay, I gotta actually make this into a real platform. So that's kind of the story behind it.
How did you think of the idea? Because we were, before you came on, we were describing the show like it's I mean the app. It's almost like like the beginning of the show, we were describing the app almost as like a platonic version of basketball Tinder, like getting all these different basketball people together, from all over the place, finding these games. Like, how did it dawn on you that you could actually make something like that happen, and that there would be a demand for it?
It's crazy, man. Well, people love basketball, and when you put the best, I'm not talking about NBA the best. I'm talking about people that love the game. Doesn't matter how good you are. You put them all on one court, you're going to get something special. And boy, do I tell you, the games they've been special. They've been special. I actually like competing. I don't compete as hard in the games because I'm like the commissioner or the founder. So I'm not trying to get into it with a user. But the games have been a joy, and you'll see what I'm saying in the next couple games that we play. Our co-ed games, extremely competitive, extremely competitive.
One of the things I think is so cool about it is basketball, like there's no like, I mean, yeah, I mean the 50s, 60s, 70s, like you go and you find an empty lot, you can play pickup baseball, I guess, but like that's hard to do. Like pickup hockey, like there are a lot of things that are hard to go play, but pickup basketball is like so fundamentally important to the culture of basketball. Like what was pickup basketball for you when you were growing up? Like how was it important in forming who you were as a player?
And by the way, I'm gonna answer that, but by the way, we're in beta. We had 2 betas, so we have some bugs on the app. And so when you go download the app, you will experience a few bugs. And don't worry about it. Right? Because we're in a live beta, because you can't do this. I can't do an app like this and then ask my staff, to just test it. You got to actually be a player. There's so many emotions and things that's happening. And then we gather all the information on Firebase and we make the app better. So we're in a live beta. But anyway, pickup basketball.
See, Jonathan, you didn't have to. You sold the bugs, and Jonathan's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's really good. It's honestly really good app. It's a really good app.
I mean,
I see all the bugs though.
they say to under promise, over deliver, Metta, but I don't think you need to let everybody.
I think everybody appreciates an honest salesman here who's going to not tell you something. But
yeah, it's a good product. It's good. But pickleball for us was like, it was the best of the best. It was real competitive back where we played at, back home. And I remember just wanting to play all day. I remember, you play the best of 7 and let's just do another 5 and just don't want to leave the court and the legs is just dead. Sodium's out the body. I miss those days.
What does it do? Like, are you a different player, like a different kind of player, if you grew up in LA playing pickup ball versus growing up in Queensbridge? Like, do guys get formed in different areas in different parts of the country in different places based on kind of that pickup culture that they grow up in?
I think so, because in New York, you can play, let's just say 5, 6, 7 games a day outside, finding tournaments in every borough. And these are organized tournaments, referees. Versus other cities, you have to go to a gym or maybe you go to a couple parks. I'm sure they got parks, but when you talk about the difference from having referees in every park in New York City, in the summertime, I don't know how it is now. It's maybe not like when I was a kid, but it was a different ball game, and I just grew a love for it.
Is there something specific that, like, when you see a guy that or maybe you don't even know, but you can tell by watching on the court, okay, that guy clearly grew up playing in New York versus, okay, that guy grew up playing in Chicago, that guy grew up playing in LA, like stylistically, are the things that sort of stand out from region to region?
I mean, one will argue that New York players got better handles, but I mean, when you look at like Stephen Curry, a lot of these guys, they can handle the ball also. Now, granted, if you're growing up in New York, you're really okay with being a New York street ball legend, right? And a lot of people's okay with that. They're not even thinking about going anywhere else but going to a park. So you don't really get a chance to see some of the most amazing handles. I've seen some really great handles on the streets of New York City, and everybody can handle the rock, and that's probably the main difference is the dribbling and the moves from a variety of people.
Now, you were saying before that these games that have been coming up with XvsX, they've already been pretty epic, pretty intense. Like,
yeah,
what should they expect when they download the app, when they find a game to go to? Like, what are they stepping into?
I think so when you download the app, and it just depends. So we got recreational. So the reason I put recreational is because when you go to a recreational game, you're not going there to get hurt. So anybody that plays in a recreational game, it's a fun gentleman and gentlewoman's game, right? So no flagrant fouling. We always put that on the app. No flagrant fouling. Be nice, because we'll block you, and you won't be able to get in to the games. You won't be able to get in. Your QR code won't work, and you'll be blocked.
Not just because of the bugs, like it just won't work.
It won't work, and I'll stop it.
That, by the way, that's not one of the bugs that you were talking about before. That's
not one of the bugs. That works. but it's a fun game, and we have our college games, intramurals games. We have our pro, semi-pro. The semi-pro games has been amazing because that's what we're really launching our beta with. And then we had a few high school games that was pretty good. We had like our high school games that was pretty good. So you really you're getting people that's there for basketball. People are they're not generally there for anything else. But I've seen a lot of relationships get made also. And you talk about when you get wins and losses. If you're in Oklahoma or Chicago, your record stays with you no matter where you play. And that's really cool to be able to track that. We got people with 50 games already, during COVID, which probably shouldn't be saying that right now, but
well, what's done is done.
What's done is done.
I mean,
well, we actually have a good COVID process. We got some people that sponsored our last game that was doing COVID testing because we know it's so expensive, depending on where you go. But it's been really fun. I'm just so lucky to be able to be around basketball. So lucky.
That I wanted to talk to you about that because, like you mentioned, like you didn't retire, and you've kind of stayed involved. You played overseas, you've done other stuff, and you talk a lot about like it is how hard is it to kind of find the things to like that you want to do, that you feel passionate about, that you want to stay invested in when you leave the NBA? Because I mean, you were like a guy who either played pro basketball for, like you said, like 20 years, or somebody who's working towards that for the part that came before.
Yes. How
do you shift gears like that? What's the challenge there?
You want to know something? Well, it's really interesting because I was coaching for the G League and the Lakers. I was in the middle of this concept. And then when I was about to start it, then I got called back to the Lakers. I was so grateful to play for the Lakers again. Then I stopped. And then when I retired, officially, I was doing the G League, but I was also working. There's a lot of work doing a startup app, C Corp app. There's a lot of work. So then what I had to do was I had to literally stop because I know I want a head coach. The only thing I would stop this for is a couple things. Head coaching job with the Knicks, head coaching job with St. John's. Well, I don't want nobody's job, so I don't want anybody.
That's pretty specific. Like that, you're being kind of picky here. Like only two head coaches.
No. There's more. Okay. There's more. It's more. But I stopped it because I don't want anybody's job. I'm not saying, hey, I don't want nobody's job. I don't even care. But Lakers, obviously. But that's I don't want nobody. I don't want. I'm just saying.
I don't think Frank Vogel's worried right now, Metta. No offense, but he seems to be in a pretty good place right now.
He's in a good place. I'm just saying, like, and then and also the Santa Monica Junior College, and there's a couple D2s that's here in Los Angeles.
It's a pretty wide gamut, Metta. Huh? It's a pretty wide gamut.
New York. I would go to New York. Another school I would coach. Also, LIU. I would love LIU is a good one because that's in New York. And Queens College because that's in Queens. Right? there's a couple of jobs that I like.
I'm going to say this right now: if Queens College doesn't hire you, screw them. Like, I'm being honest, man. If Queens doesn't bring in you to coach that job, like I need my
own schedule. I'm really difficult to deal with because look, if they give me the job, like literally. I want my own schedule, and I might not show up some days. But I'm a good coach.
But the days that you're there, those players are going to get better.
Let's worry about the wins and the improvement. Don't worry about everything else.
The record will speak for itself.
What's important, Metta, is that you just surround yourself with a good staff.
Yes. I've seen people. Larry Bird did it when he was with the Pacers. He literally had Rick Carlisle do all the dirty work.
He was physically there. He did show up. Like he was at every game.
I kind of feel like, I mean, again, no disrespect to this school, but I kind of feel like if you agree to coach Queens College, you could pull off the "I'll be there when I'm there." Like I actually think you've got the clout to do that.
Yeah, I could do that anywhere. Like if I was a coach, like say hypothetically, 5 years from now, I'm coaching the Knicks. Like I'm not going to show up every day. Okay, I'm not going to show up every day. All right, just letting this one. I'm not going to show up every day. One day I'm going to miss out. I'm only human, I need a break.
Your brother just left a comment.
I know. I see it.
Yeah, you can see it.
I see you, Daniel.
Yeah, he said he's staying up late on the this Gooey K says it reminds me of when Phil Jackson said he would only coach home games. Remember that?
I know I'm doing, and I can walk. I'm lazy. Phil's more passionate. No, honestly, I do have some things. I do have some offenses that I want to test out when I do start coaching. I'm coaching a lot of coaches right now. I'm actually coaching coaches. We're developing head coaches. We're developing referees. We're developing trainers, also players, agents. We're developing the agent. This platform, it has so much organic basketball social impact in it. I couldn't be more excited. So I am doing a lot of coaching now.
That's actually, I wanted to ask you about that.
I'm glad you brought that up.
In the press materials for XvsX, and it's funny because we know your people. We know that this is something that you were looking to launch last year, and then COVID got in the way of all this stuff. But you brought up in the materials how you see this as like a potential networking opportunity for the people involved,
yes,
and like an opportunity to help provide avenues into playing basketball professionally, or basketball being part of your occupation in some way. How do you see that happening?
It's really, so when you look at, let's say you work at Starbucks or Target, and you have to work to feed your family, right? And you're a good basketball player. You need a schedule, your schedule. The typical basketball schedule is 10 to 2. With the exception when you have a game, 10 to 2, because you're going to play, you're going to work out, you're going to do your open run. Well, the typical work schedule is 9 to 5. If you're working from 9 to 5, what time do you have to play, right? What time do you have to work out? And I really took that in consideration. And that's why it's important to find like-minded people like you with the same interests, and where you could actually get some runs. And we had midnight runs. We had early in the morning runs where people could get their game in. And it's also very healthy physically, because imagine if you're going to work 9 to 5 and you don't want to do the treadmill, you don't want to run. Some people don't want to do that. You want to do something you love. Some people love to swim, some people love to hike, but not every, a basketball player wants to play basketball. So you got to put that basketball play. I treat my basketball players, I treat them just like an NBA organization would treat its player. Right, we really cater, to the basketball player.
How many players do you think, whether you talked about guys in New York who are content being street ball guys, and like that's or whatever it might be. How many players do you think, whether it's circumstance, whether it's can't find the schedule, you got stuck with your family, you got to drop out of school, whatever it might be, you can't play, especially now, like the AAU circuit's so important. If you can't get into that, or whatever it might be, how much talent do you think is lost around the country in basketball because people just can't access the avenues you need to be able to get to college, to be able to get to the pros, whatever it might be?
That's a great question. We did a ton of research on this, maybe 100 pages, and we've seen so many different type of talent. That when you become an 8th grader, what happens to you then if you was the best 7th grader? What happens when you're the best 11th grader? What happens when you're in college, and where are you going, right? And it's also an issue with juvenile delinquents, players that are really good at the age of 12 and 13, and then they get into the system, right? So how can we minimize all that, right? How can we be there for them when they get out the system to keep them playing basketball? Also, the transgender players also, how can we give them an opportunity to play a game that they love, right? So we've been thinking about all this stuff and trying to take it step by step. It's so much talent. And when you look at the NBA, which is like the elephant in the room and the best league in the world, not everybody can make the NBA, right? But it doesn't mean that when you're on, Instagram, for example, or YouTube, and you're building this following, right, which is everybody's doing now, how can we use that also and build the audience around it, right? And it's already proven. Instagram proved it. Facebook proved it. YouTube proved it. Twitter didn't really prove it. It's more just like the news. But these other platforms prove that it's an audience for basketball players. And now how can you, as a basketball player, you would literally miss out on your job to play basketball for free. Because you get zoned out and all you're focused on is getting better with your handle. You're not focused on, I got to put food on the table. And I think about these things, right? So how can we create an atmosphere where if you love basketball that much, we can at least have an opportunity for you to treat it like an occupation, right? And not just playing basketball, but yeah.
You know,
Go ahead, Andy.
It's interesting the way you mentioned looking for opportunities for young players who may have gotten into trouble or gone wayward when they were younger, or opportunities for transgender players who, right now it's transgender athletes in sports is a really hot button controversial issue that, bring out a lot of ugliness, to be totally frank. But it feels like in some ways this app is an extension of the work that you've been doing for mental health advocacy, like in continuing to find different ways to help people through issues they're experiencing. Is that an accurate way of looking at it?
I mean, you hit it pretty much on the nose. It's embedded social impact. And my goal was, when I do sell this company, the goal is to have it where if you try to take out the social impact, you're going to have a difficult time. If you don't love social impact, you might not want to buy this company, or you might not want to be involved. It's huge social impact. And you'll see some of the partnerships that we're making even before launch. You'll see what I'm saying. And it is huge social impact. It's huge mental health when you talk about connecting with others. Because you don't know the basketball player you're playing against. You don't know where they're from. You don't know anything about them. They could be rich, poor, happy, not. We don't know, but we're here to play basketball, and we're here to build a bond and relationship, right? When the next time you playing, what happened to that Laker game? Are you coaching too? Yeah, I'm reffing and playing. Oh wow, you're a coach and a ref. Oh, right. And this is what's happening in communication, right? Which we need, right? So when you talk about the best playing on the app, you don't know if they're going to be all black or all mixed, right? But we're just coming together. And this is an app where the only problem we will have is probably getting into China in terms of connecting, making it really easy to take your profile from, LA to Vegas, or Vegas to New York, or New York to Europe, right? And now we are all connecting on different levels. We're starting in Los Angeles, but my goal is to bring, lots of people together by playing basketball.
We have a ton of people on the chat board who are talking about your work with mental health and had some questions about that. And so we want to make sure we talk about it. Also too, we wanted to do something kind of fun. We might push you a little bit past the hour. Is that all right?
No, it's fine, 'cause I'm late anyway. So it is.
Right, cool. we want to check, because we think this would be kind of fun. But when we see now Kyrie Irving's talking about, Kevin Love, a lot of players, talking very openly about mental health. Nobody was doing it when you did. What got you to a place where you felt like you could do that?
When I first got into the league, I knew I always wanted to tell people, like, I'm stressed. When I was 19, I knew I always wanted to come out in the media and just say, like, I'm stressed today and I can't handle it. But when back in 1999, if you say, the media is like, if you come out and say you had mental health issues or you stressed or depressed, the media wasn't as friendly. It wasn't as educated on these issues. It wasn't as, what would you say, welcoming. And it changed over time. And I think it changed with athletes, pretty much just not really caring how people thought of them, getting in trouble. Maybe you might get suspended a game, coming on television, apologizing, or vulnerability, just being human. And then over time, you're able to just say, hey, I need to seek, a little mental health help or therapy or whatever. It started with people like Rodman, when Rodman went on Oprah that one time and was talking about a few things. And one of the things that I really do criticize media about, I don't criticize a lot, but
go for it.
When Rodman was going through all that stuff, and then even when he wore the dress, right? people forgot to talk about the story. He's telling you that he grew up with no family. Yeah, like listen to the story. Even I watched the Tiger story also, and we got to listen to these things, right? We got to listen to, like, Tiger was literally, when you've seen the story, it's like, wow. Like, hold on a second, let's have some sympathy for a second, right? But now it's a little bit, people are more open to it. Is you look at Kevin Love. It's not about being first or whatever. I'm more like, I'm proud of the guys because I'm like, they came out, and I think it's important that they showed their vulnerable side.
But I think it was also really important when you look at this evolution in the league. And I think, the NBA is not perfect, but I think they definitely are making efforts. And I think they've been, I think they've been very forward compared to a lot of other leagues. But I think it was actually in a lot of ways important that it was you, because you had this reputation before as like crazy Ron Artest. And, like people used to frame you that way. And then when you started becoming more open about this stuff, it became something deeper than that. Like it became like, no, this is somebody talking about issues as opposed to, just, oh, he's just being crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it put like,
it was when people would say that, I would always be like, I would be upset about it. Honestly, I would be really upset. But then I also got it because I was doing things that was detrimental to my team. And so it was things where I was like, they could be right, but also you don't know like what I'm actually going through. And it's not your problems to know, but I am going through something right now. So right now I don't really care what anybody thinks, right? That's my mindset, but I think when you see the history of entertainers and history of athletes, it's always something, right? It's always something coming out, and it's never going to stop, right? So it's important to be there for them, especially as an athlete. Anytime I see something happen with an entertainer, I'm always like on call, just in case, somebody might need to reach out. You know what I'm saying? I'm always trying to be ready for those moments.
I'm not sure if you know his work. There's a really great young basketball writer. His name's Law Murray. He covers the Clippers now for The Athletic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but we had him on the show last week, and he made a great point, and we wanted to talk to you about it. You may have seen it earlier. We tweeted it out. He talked about how players, now with the sort of the media and the narratives, it's like you get cast almost like WWE style, especially like the playoffs come around. And, you want to build the TV product. So certain guys are the heroes, other guys are the heels, and you get good guys and bad guys. And the players don't necessarily get a vote, and they may not be comfortable with that, like what they're assigned to be.
Mm-hmm.
How true do you think that is? Like to where like you kind of have sometimes like a persona that's put on you when you're in the league, and you may not be comfortable with it. Like you kind of have to exist in this sort of,
or you even feel like a pressure to play up to that perception after a while.
I mean, you're right, man. Like, so every NBA player wants to be the best, and you always, in each era, you have someone to look up to, right? Like our era was Michael Jordan, right? Just like everybody look up to LeBron James. And when you see Michael Jordan with the commercials, and then you see Patrick Ewing with the sneakers, and you see Charles Barkley with his sneakers, right? You're like, okay, I want to do that too. And you try to mimic that, but that's not really you. Right before the Brawl, I always wanted to be like player, all-star, endorsements, everything's good, suit, tie, like boom, right? Like the perfect player. But then again, I didn't want to be that also, right? It was like two things that I was struggling with.
You may not remember, I actually wrote a long feature about this with you. And you talked about that specifically, about like basically you weren't ready to be the guy in the suit, even though you saw being the guy in the suit as something you were, finger quotes, supposed to be doing. Like being in the suit represented in a lot of ways things that you weren't ready for, including like looking like you had forgotten where you came from. Like the being in the suit represented that.
Yeah. I always was worried about that. Because where I'm from, once they don't have nobody to relate to look up to, is really like you're lost. So I'm always like, sometimes I was always just trying to make sure, like, you see my hoodie, you see the sweats, I'm here, I'm here. I mean, when you see me in the street, you can talk to me. But it's another way to approach it. I don't think I always approached it the right way, but I didn't want to be that far removed. Now, did it hurt me with certain things, maybe certain endorsements and different things? Probably a little bit, but it did keep me close to the streets, but how do you measure that? I mean, people are doing the right thing. I see a lot of guys now, like, able to cross over in terms of like, I think it's a really great thing. If you're a pro and you have the opportunity to do big things and get endorsements, and I think it's really cool. I don't see nothing wrong with it, honestly. I often wish I went that route sometimes, but I'm still here.
What would have been the ultimate? What would have been the ultimate then Ron Artest pitch product? Like, what do you wish you'd gotten in on?
Oh man, well, actually, so when I was coming up, like, and I was 19 years old, and when I got in the league, I wanted to do my own shoe. So the first thing I did was, like, I had a couple contracts in Converse, offered some contracts, a couple other companies. I'm like, I want to do my own shoe, and I remember it was going to cost me $90,000 to do the mold, and so then I was like, okay, and then I said, let me try something else. So then in Indiana, I had an art test shoe. I had 2 of my own shoes in Indiana, and then I think in Houston and then Lakers. I was always trying to do my own stuff, but it takes a lot of work actually to do like your own shoe. You got to actually put a lot of time into it. It could be done, right? But you got to put a lot of time into it, which I was like really moving hair to hair to hair. That's why this when I'm doing now, I'm like 100% focused because I always wanted to rap. I wanted to do movies and my own shoe. It's difficult doing one thing.
And this is why you were playing basketball. Like, it's not like you didn't have a day job.
And that's one thing I do regret. And I know you asked a different question, but I know one thing I do regret was not giving it all to the sport. Even though I was pretty good, I was doing so much on tour rapping.
I remember that period, actually. I remember the Ron Artest rapper period. It wasn't that long in your career. I mean, it didn't seem like, I mean, compared to some other guys that, like Damian Lillard has, I think most fans are really aware of the type of work that he's done into that. And
he's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it.
He's good.
But I wasn't like a natural rapper. I just had a story that people wanted to hear. You know what I'm saying? It was different from being like, people was interested in my story, right?
You're the champion single.
The champion single was good. That actually sold. Shaq sold the most. I think that sold 150,000 singles. So that might have been one of the most selling singles. But it was a good record. It was a good record.
Before we get to this other thing that we wanted to kind of do with you, Kweezy on the chat board has a question. What is the one piece of advice you would give to a young player trying to become a lockdown defender?
I would say a young player. I mean, you got to work at it. When I was a good defender, people think I'm just a great defender. I was working at it. I go to the gym and I'm not touching the ball for the first 45 minutes. That was it. It was running, it was sliding, and it was doing a bunch of things before I even touch a ball. And then when you talk about playing offense and defense, that's why I was able to guard people and I was able to get it in on the other side. So I would say you put in the work, and if you want to be a good defender, actually work on being a good defender. Like, do things that a great defender would do.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think a lot of times people, I know there is a lot of effort that goes into it. There's a lot of desire that goes into it, but there's a lot of technique too. And there's a lot of understanding what's going on and like really studying film and studying tendencies. Like I remember one time when you were with the Lakers, you were really happy after a game that you had held LeBron. LeBron, I think, had no assists that game.
That was with the Rockets. I was with the Rockets.
Okay, it was with the Rockets. But I remember you talking about, you were really excited about that because you knew that you had managed to just mess him up defensively to the point where when LeBron doesn't get assists, that means he's really out of sorts. he's such a good playmaker.
Such a good player. I know. That was actually Shane Battier's strategy. Yeah, that was Shane Battier's strategy. Like, no assists. Ron, don't give everybody, stay on your man. And he had 0 assists, and I was just like, wow, we did it. And that was a regular season game, but that was a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
To do something like that. I was really happy with that.
That's not easy to do.
That's not easy to do. Because you
All
got to
right.
literally, it's not easy to do.
I'm not sure if this ever made it all the way to you. Andy and I had an idea. And what really screwed this up was the pandemic more than anything. You may have noticed the pandemic screwed up a lot of things. So we had an idea because the 10-year anniversary of the 2010 title was in June. And part of the 2010 title that was so joyous and so memorable was your post Game 7 press conference. And so what we wanted to do was kind of an oral history of that moment, of like just everything around it. Because I mean, like there is so much, especially now, there's so much stuff in sports that's just negative and it's people trying to cut people down. Like that was one of the most just genuinely joyful and happy and optimistic things that like anybody had ever seen.
Got applauded at the end of that by the media.
Yeah.
I've never seen that ever happen in my life. I've been to a lot of these. I mean, they really applauded you. You made everybody that happy.
So if you don't mind, what we thought we might be kind of fun, because we're just like, we're really interested in kind of taking you back and like what you were thinking is like, if we could play some of that with you and just do the oral history of that moment right now. Like, would that be all right?
How will we do it?
I'll just show you. I will just share the screen. I have it ready to go.
Okay, let's do it.
Because let me just find it here. Oh, we'll see if we get to tough passages.
Actually, something I'm not even joking, Metta. When like if I ever need to smile, if I ever need to feel in a good mood because just everything just feels shitty, and there's been a lot of that for a while. Yeah. I will pull up that thing on YouTube and I will watch it because it is impossible not to be happy.
Okay, so everybody you should be able to see it. Like it should be on the screen. And so we should be able to hear it too. So here's how it starts. I'll turn up the volume. And here we go.
I got Wheaties. I got Wheaties. You don't seem excited. I'm leaving. Y'all don't seem excited. I'm all excited. I feel like the oddball. Come on. You're the only one. Everybody else is like just bored. I could have
left. I'm so happy and then go to left.
So,
to you, right? My kids here yet?
Like when you what's going on here? Like when you come out, like what do you like? Do you remember what you were thinking and like just where you were?
I'm here all day. We're not all
kind of like what you were feeling all that when this started. Like how much of this do you really remember?
I remember the feeling. Like I remember I'm a champion. I always knew I was going to be a champion. And I knew I was destined to be greatness, but things stop the greatness. But to get the ring, for me personally, is like, wow, yeah, you are a great player. Starting and playing, right? So I was like, yes, I never thought I would win a title after like the brawl.
Come on,
other things. I'm like, I'm never going to win a title.
I mean, look, like the people were applauding you, Metta, at the beginning of it. Just the beginning. That doesn't happen. People don't do that.
Man, it was. I think people knew. I don't know. It felt like maybe a lot of the media there, they knew what I was going through, and to come out on that side, a lot of people were surprised.
Oh man, first I want to
that I got a title. A lot of people were surprised that I was there. Nobody thought they'd see me here. I didn't think I would see me at that point in time.
And this is the other thing that I think is awesome, and like everyone in this photo, in this moment. Your family here with you.
Good or bad,
it's like when you just see your family at this point in time.
A Game 7.
What is like we're all parents. Like kind of takes it back. Like what's it just like to see your kids, your family, and all that, your brothers there, like at this moment.
I mean, it was great. It was a great moment. It was a great moment to be able to experience that with the fam. They didn't even ask me to be up there. Honestly, the story was. I'm like, yo, I had a big game. I'm talking on the podium now. They didn't have me scheduled to go. They were trying to. They always trying to move me out the way. Like people always try to not really respect the greatness.
Sometimes like a coward.
And I'm like, I deserve to be up there. And then they was like, yeah, it's true. I said, I told you it's true. Get out my way.
Wait, so you weren't even supposed to.
And
Who do they have scheduled in front of you? Like this was like you just kind of crashed the party here.
I just felt like I honestly felt like what a great game, and
totally forgot.
let me hit this podium. Like we need this moment. We can't do this again tomorrow.
Also, I mean, look, you only get to the finals so many times, and you only win times. And you only get 20 points. I think it was like 5 rebounds, 5 steals. So many times. You may not get a podium game again.
You might not get it again. And honestly, I knew that teams at Indiana we could win the title.
Play 40 minutes.
You know what I'm saying? I knew, like, we had the team win the title, but when you are so detrimental to the team, and then, like, when you're not putting your team in a situation to win, then you've done everything in your power to never to get the opportunity ever again to win. So I felt like I never deserved that. I actually felt like I never deserved a chance to win. If I never would have won a title, I would have been like, I get it.
You actually apologized. I don't know if you remember, but you actually apologized to a bunch of your Indiana teammates during this press conference.
I wanted to, because like that was actually the team I wanted to win a title with. And that's one of the reasons why I gave away my ring, because I wanted the ring. It's not that I wasn't grateful. It's just like I've done things before I was a Laker, that wasn't right. So let's just do something good with the ring. And then also I'm so competitive.
Figure it out.
So as a competitor, I had to complete a lot of tasks. And I left the East. So I never played against LeBron in the East. And then I didn't win a title with the Pacers, which I wanted to.
Didn't even realize I was
detrimental to the team.
Really in the game 7.
There was so many things, and then even my own career. It wasn't, I leave the East that 1 year, I get suspended. That's another All-Star game. I only got one All-Star game. I only got only one All-NBA team. That's another All-NBA team. So when you think about it, when I think about all those things personally, when I reflect, I'm just like, a lot of things was going through my mind at that time. I was really happy. I really was happy, but it was still like wasn't as satisfying for me. I would like to have like that.
You said it.
Have you reached a place where some of those regrets like don't I want to say taint is too strong, maybe too strong a word, but like you understand what I'm getting, like have you reached a place where like some of those regrets don't overshadow some of the satisfaction that you feel about winning at this point, or is it always going to be there?
Well, I think like I have a lot of things I'm happy about now. I always wanted to make the NBA, right? So I did it. So it's like I do have an award. I'm not happy with the amount of awards I have, because it should have been. If I stay in the East, if I'm there in the East, that's another All-Star. If I don't get suspended that year, I'm number 2 on the team. We're the best in the league, right?
Everything is who's
and then the next year, if I stay again, if I can make it to February, that's another All-Star game. So I didn't even make it to February. I got suspended, and I was kicked off the team. Then I went to the West, and when I got to the West, it took me. I was out of shape, so I missed out on all the things that you want as a great player. All NBA teams,
of course, the defense of the
All Stars.
You were the one who kind of stepped up and helped.
And you gotta seize those moments. And I didn't seize those moments.
Am I remembering correctly, Metta? The season that you got suspended, the season before is when you won Defensive Player of the Year, correct?
The season before is when I won Defensive Player of the Year. But the season before I won Defensive Player of the Year, I led the league in flagrants. So I missed out on other things.
I mean, they're probably not entirely unrelated. I mean, you might need to do a little bit of one to get the other. Like, so you're coming off a Defensive Player of the Year season. You have a really good team, and you had been playing really well before that suspension. Were you thinking about yourself as a potential MVP candidate?
That's what I was going for. The year before that, they don't show it much because you finished first. That's it. I was number 6. Jermaine was like number 4 or 3. And then I came back the next year. I'm like, I gotta get that. So I came back the next year from averaging 18 to 24. It was only 7 games, but you knew the season I was having, right?
And that's something I want.
Right, even if it was 21 points that I averaged. As the best defender in the league and averaging as a lockdown, not even it's a lockdown defender. 3 more points that at least put you to like 3rd for MVP or maybe 2nd, right? So I was, and then after that happened, I'm like, Not again. You always mess up. You always mess up. I got back. I remember I got back to when I got to Sacramento. I was 273 pounds. Doing it right before the blow, like 248, 245.
Question on the right side.
You know, yeah. So I gained a ton of weight.
What was the biggest reasons? I mean, like beyond just not playing basketball, were you
depression,
food,
depression,
You got to pick him up.
drinking, and just not working out.
How different do you think your career would have been if you had the kind of outlet to, like you said, like when you came in the league, you know, it's 1999, you're like, you want to tell people you're stressed out. You didn't have the maybe you didn't have the vocabulary, there wasn't the outlet there wasn't the tolerance there. How much different do you think your career would have been if those, like, if you came along today with those same stresses and same problems, with people like you paving the way?
I don't know, it's hard to say, right? It's hard to say because if you go back to that era, 23 years old, then maybe it's the same, maybe it's a repeat. You know, it's hard. It's really hard to say. I did have support. I had veterans that were trying to help me. I always had Reggie Miller was always trying to help me. Charles Oakley, Greg Anthony, BJ Armstrong. It was. I seen some of the guys. I seen guys try to help me and literally walk away because you can't get through it. I've seen it happen, right? I'm like, man, he literally just walked away because I'm a jerk.
How can you teach my 8-year-old to learn to take responsibility for his behavior? Like, just understand that it's okay to say, you know what, I am making a mistake here. It's okay. Like,
This concludes the interview room for the 2010 NBA
the self-awareness that you're able to talk about yourself is so difficult. I'm not just talking about my 8-year-old, for anyone.
Yeah.
How much practice does that take? I mean, like, just seriously, like that is not an easy thing to do, to be able to be that self-critical about important stuff.
I mean, you know, I think, like, you know, when you're talking about different things, I mean, you want to always try to reach out to people. So I remember when I was in Sacramento, I actually wanted to do, you know, reach out, because I knew I was going to do a few things. And when you see your friends and other people, it's like, you know what, let's try to do something, you know, where we could reach the masses. And I tried those things, and it was something I always wanted to do. I'm like, you know what, just say what's on your mind. You know, it's okay. Now, sometimes I wish I would have just kind of kept my mouth shut. Like, I see a lot of pros and how they don't really open up, but they keep it real standard. I think it's a good thing, you know, if you want to stay private. But me, I was always like, you know what, just be an open book. So maybe I was a little bit too much of an open book, but you know, it's okay.
I got 3 pretty quick questions off that presser because I don't think I've ever heard you acknowledge them before. But like I said, this is something people love. There's the famous moment where you talk about Kobe passed me the ball. He never passes me the ball. Were you actually shocked when he passed you the ball? Like, were you surprised?
Nah, you know what? In that moment, I was just ready, because I'm like, I can't be worried about not touching the ball, because, you know, prior to that, I was averaging 22 in the playoffs against the Lakers. I was playing great defense. I was doing all right, right? So you come back to a season, you come back the next season, you only averaging 6.
Right.
And then people saying you're getting old. I'm like, that's not true. That's not getting the ball, but you know, but when I had to make I actually tried to get traded that year. I told my agent, I said, you got to get me out of here.
Wait, your first year with the Lakers?
Yeah, I told my agent, I was like,
no way.
Yeah,
Wait,
I was only averaging 6 points. I'm like, I'm trying to have a good career. I only averaging 6 points. And then when I spoke to me and Dr. Bus would have like breakfast actually on Sundays quite often, you know, and just like, you know what, let's just try to win. Like, that's it. You know, I wasn't happy. I literally knew that the rest of my career I was going to be a role player. Like, and I had to prep for that. So just being ready, I wasn't surprised. I was just like ready to be there to support. Because if I was standing straight up, or if I wasn't ready, maybe I'm not ready to shoot. And actually, in game 3 in Boston, if you watch that game, I'm like this for 40 minutes. I make my first 2 threes, and I don't shoot again. Right? But I'm still like, and then in that playoff series, my whole thing was here, ready to shoot. When you stay ready. And I would do that for 40 minutes and not touch the ball. But I was ready.
I think I speak for a lot of Laker fans when I say thank you very much for allowing Dr. Buss to talk you off the ledge, because clearly you were needed in those playoffs and those finals. You said at the beginning of the presser that you had a little bit of champagne and you were ready to go to the club. If you had to ballpark it, how much champagne do you think we were talking?
That night, it was a lot. Just like anybody that won a championship, it was a lot. that night worked out crazy because then I go to the club. I go eat. We actually go to dinner first with my family. We order a bunch of steak. And people might have 2 pieces of steak. We had all the steak left over. Nobody ate the steak. Right? So we went to Fleming's right across the street. Right?
Yeah.
So we go there, nobody eats the steak, and then we take the family home, and then we go out and just party all night. And then I literally went to that night. I smoked a blunt with Snoop.
There you go.
In the studio, and I was and then that night.
Wait, what studio? How do you get to a studio from Staples?
Oh no, we was at a club first. It was a journey. It was a journey. It was a journey, and then Dr. Dre records the remix to Champion at like 4 a.m. I'm recording with Dr. Dre.
Oh wow!
At 4 a.m. recording, and we did the first verse, and Dr. Dre was like, "Yo." It sounds funny, and when it says, and Dr. Dre said, it sounds funny, but Dr. Dre was like, okay, we're gonna finish this song. I like what you had, but let's make another one. So we was there, we did the first verse, and it took so long. Dr. Dre, he's a perfectionist, right? We was on one syllable for like maybe 20 minutes, just a syllable. And he's like, I want you to say it like this. So this turned from, I'm like, damn, I'm not even celebrating my championship night right now. I'm working again, but I'm having a great time. So the pop is like right here, the pop to the mic. And Dr. Dre's behind he's behind the glass. And I'm falling asleep, but I'm trying to keep my eyes so he can't see me. And I'm like, I was falling asleep like this. After we did the first verse, I was like, Doc, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Can I go? And he said, yeah, let's finish the song. Let's finish the song another day. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna finish the song. And I was so intimidated by Dr. Dre. I never went back to finish the song, but the verse, he's such a perfectionist. And the verse is in his is actually in his wherever his hard drives are probably.
The last question I had is that night, I think Brian may have been there too, but ran into you after everything had ended. You're in the LA Live Plaza. You were still in your uniform.
Yes.
Like you were
video. I was in my uniform recording the record.
When did you eventually take the uniform off? Like how long did it take before you eventually took off that championship Lakers uniform?
I think, well, when I got to the studio, Chris Brown was there, right? So Chris is there, and he's like, yeah, Jungle, good game, right? And he's like, yo, I want that jersey. I said, yo, you serious? I take the jersey off, that jersey, sign it for Chris Brown. And so I give him the jersey, right? That night, he has the jersey still, right?
What?
Yeah, I gave it to Chris Brown that night. It was crazy. I'm like, if anybody gets my jersey, it's Chris.
Right? What do you have left from this title? You gave the ring away. You gave your jersey away. What's left?
Memories, YouTube. YouTube. It was crazy, man. But I had my game tape on. I had my span maybe like I had it on for maybe like 5 days. Maybe.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was not taking none of this. I wasn't taking it all. I probably slept in but then eventually I took a shower. But I left it on for a while. I had my snaps. I was in the club with my snaps on.
That is awesome. Yeah, because I remember we saw him in the LA Plaza. It's like he's leaving a little league game. It's leaving a little league.
I didn't want to take it off, man. I was like,
I can't blame you. You've been so generous with your time, and we want to let you go with just one more chance to talk about the app. When you look at what you want this community to be, like 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, with XvsXSports, like what do you imagine that to be? Just because it's such a cool thing that you're working on.
Well, the end goal is to turn athletes into digital assets. That was the beginning plan, which just sounds crazy, but to turn them into digital assets so they can create opportunities for themselves. You said earlier, decentralize, democratize, and let people be able to put their own journey in their hands. We have so many players you see come up in high school that have these big followings, but it's so hard to make it to the NBA, right? There's so many people there's only 400 spots. You got to be exceptional, and they got to be good timing, right? So they got the G League, they got the NCAA, but we needed to build another vehicle. And when you look at when you look at Alibaba, you can go on Alibaba right now and purchase some product, and then you could actually talk to the merchant offline, but you're not going to do that because you trust Alibaba, all their products, right? So it's the same thing because it's basically easy logistics, right? So when you look at Facebook, right, you can actually go home and take all your photos and put it in your drawer, or just put it on Facebook, right? And Facebook, you build a lot of equity in Facebook from a different point of view. But here with XvsXSports, that's what I want to do for athletes. I want you to be able to look down the line 10 years from now, and then you're gonna be like, wow, I had a pretty good career, right? You can go back and look back at things you did from a sports perspective, and enjoy it while creating opportunities for yourself. So many times we look to the echelon, leagues, opportunities, and we say we want to be there. And when we don't make it there, we just go a different route. But I think when you have fans and an audience and with technology, you can continue to pursue your dreams. It doesn't have to be at the top of the top if you don't make it. And that's what XvsXSports is about. Those are the type of people I'm working with. We raised from some really good people, the chairman of Wix, LA Times, founder of Survey Monkey, Rattle Ale, so many people that was helping me with this vision, and a couple other really great investors. And now we're entering a second phase where we want to blow this out, and we want to compete, and we want to have a great time. And literally, I really hope people enjoy it. We're in a live beta. We did 2 betas. Usually you do 1 beta, but we did 2. We did a first one. We got a group of people, about 2,000 people on it. Got a lot of data and information. Then we launched a live beta right now, and then we're gonna, about mid-March, we'll start really marketing. So I hope people enjoy it. I really hope people enjoy the app.
It's XvsXSports. You see the logo up in the top. I got the big one down here. Like this is what we're doing here. And it's a really cool app. You find it anywhere where you get your apps, app stores, Android, Apple, whatever it might be. And it's really cool to hear the process behind it and what's motivated you. And I'm trying to make it so we can see your face again. There we go. And thank you so much for giving us this much time. We really appreciate it. It was so much fun.
It's great.
Yeah, well, we should definitely do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, and any help that we can give to help spread the word about XvsX, just let us know, man. This was awesome. Thank you very much. Tomorrow,
anybody watching, I'm trying to. I don't want that many people in the app right now to March. So you can sprinkle it. That is out.
All of you talk amongst yourselves. Coordinate.
Talk among yourselves. Yeah.
Organize. Get on the app and organize. So you don't want to overload it. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, we don't want to overload it. Yeah, we don't want to overload it. But you can direct message me, and you can also receive donations right now on the app. So I don't know what to right to you.
Yeah, and whenever you get to the next step of this, come back and we'll do it again, and we'll just every step along the way, we're happy to help. And just so many people impacted by what you're doing. You see it on the chat, just genuinely impacted by the work that you've done. Well beyond how much you're loved in LA for what you did with the Lakers. What you've done off the court is so significant. So it was great to talk about that. Talk about the press conference and all that stuff. And it's just great to see you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And we'll speak soon.
All right. Sounds great.
Tomorrow night, we've got Jake Brennan, the host of the Disgraceland podcast, host and creator. It's a awesome
A cool show.
Music podcast. It's basically about rock stars, rap stars, R&B, people in music, and frankly, bad behavior, why the stories are so insanely compelling, even if they are repelling at the same time. We're also going to have Lindsay Theory from ESPN, who covers the Rams. You may have heard kind of a big trade that just went down. Matthew Stafford coming in, Jared Goff on his way out. We're going to break all that down. So we're going to have Jake Brennan and Lindsay Theory on
interview late night happy hour of all time. We're really busting through boundaries this week.
Absolutely. So again, we really appreciate everybody being here, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Dank u Nederland.